everybody. Good evening. Very nice to see you. Welcome to my office. A lot of you on the call are seeing my office for the first time. This is my office at IKAR. It is very nice to see everybody, some who were here last week, some who were not here last week. I was just jotting down. Thank you, Mari. Yeah, I think it's lovely music as well. That is an Israeli group called Alma. It's a modern group, but the words are a lot older. And the words say, "Happy is the person who does not walk in the way of the wicked, stand among the sinners, or sit in the seat of the scornful. But whose delight is the Torah of the Divine One, and that they study day and night." So you see, if I had chosen that as the core text for this course, it would be a very, very short course. But just so that you are aware that there's more than one formulation within the Jewish tradition of what makes us happy. With that though, so it's called, I just want to pop it in, it's called Ashrei Ha'ish, and the group is called Alma. And I leave it, that's your homework mission, should you choose to accept it. But for us here tonight, we are going to continue to engage in the pursuit of happiness. So without further ado, let me share my slides and then we can begin. With a thought as abstract as finding happiness, I always feel that a slide or two is a sensible thing. I hope you won't be bothered that I have the tiles here on the left of my screen. If I do that, it means that I can see your faces during the class. If not, I'm just talking to my slides, which for me kind of defeats the object. So welcome to session 2 of Finding Happiness. We're going to find it in just 4 Zoom sessions. No, actually we're not. But what I hope that we are going to do is to give some thought and some combined wisdom to what happiness is and how we might find it. And my hope is that along with the counsel of our teachers, we might come away from this course with somewhat different ideas, both about what we think happiness is and how a human being might achieve it. So I want to introduce our teachers. Here is our panel of teachers. On the left is Arthur Brooks. Arthur Brooks writes about happiness for the Atlantic magazine. I gave his resume last week. Suffice to say that he started out his life as a professional French horn player, and around about the age of 35 had to change direction and is now one of the leading contemporary authorities on happiness. And I have found his work really wise and compelling. And of course, being a rabbi, I thought, I wonder if we've got a Jewish version of that. And we sort of have. The gent on the right with the scroll and the serious expression is an artist's rendition of the author of the book of Ecclesiastes, which is one of the books of the Bible that we read least of all. It's traditionally read at Sukkot when we're far too busy eating and drinking and actually being happy, to look at a book that is a philosophical treatment of what is happiness and how do we achieve it. And we don't know who the author was. The book is ascribed to King Solomon because it's a wise book, and King Solomon is thought of in our tradition as a wise person. I can tell you in confidence that it's extremely likely that actual King Solomon didn't write it. What has always fascinated me is that the Hebrew word for this writer, the convener or the preacher, which gives the Greek Ecclesiastes, which is how we name the book, is in the feminine. So I am just plunking that out there. Yes, for all that the person writes in the first person, I, Solomon, was king in Jerusalem, the fact that it's a feminine word has made me think more than once about powers behind the throne. So I leave that with you. And the third source of our wisdom is each other. One of the joys of adult education, at least for me, is that there is always a brain, there is always a hive brain in the room. And since part of the purpose of these short courses that I run for IKAR is not just for me to pontificate at you for an hour, I was going to say much though I would love to, but I don't think I would. The idea is not so much to do that. The idea is for us to be able to share our wisdom and connect with each other. Now, I know that this class might feel different if we were doing it in person, but I am constantly and pleasantly surprised at how we are able to connect even using the medium of Zoom. And some of us, especially people who come regularly to Morning Minion, are very practiced at this connection. So I invite us to see all of us in the room tonight as teachers of each other. As you get to grips with the material that I'm presenting, there is an invitation to share your wisdom. We're going to start by just asking you, I can see the chat line is open already, and that is good. I haven't seen what's in it yet. Hang on a minute. Let me just take a quick look. Can anyone else see Rabbi Silver's screen? Okay, thank you. Thank you. It is fixed. Susan is asking, am I recording this? The answer is yes. Did we record last? Oh, Marilyn has answered that question. You see, ladies and gentlemen, I give you collective wisdom. Okay, this is exactly how it's supposed to work. Please go ahead and introduce yourselves in the chat. Your name and your location. I happen to know that some of you are in Los Angeles and some of you are not in Los Angeles. And if you wish, you could also pop in what drew you to the class, but you don't have to. Just your name and your location so that we have a sense of knowing each other. And while you are doing, oh my goodness, Susan, while we are doing that, pardon me, I ate my dinner far too fast, far too fast. I'm just going to set out the admin part of the class. So we have 3 more classes to go in this mini series. I do invite, for any class that involves wisdom, is to have some writing materials by you so that you can capture the wisdom that we generate in the class and look at it afterwards. And please journal the class if you wish, or include the class. If you're already a journaler, include the class. This class is recorded and it goes up on the IKAR YouTube channel. So you will find it there. And the modalities that we use are this one, which is that we're all in group all together and we're using the chat. There will also be an opportunity in every class for you to do a little bit of personal work that is just for you to capture. Again, good idea to have some writing materials by you. And I'm also going to use the breakout feature to put people in small groups so that you can share your wisdom and then stream that wisdom down into the chat when you come back from breakout. We did find last week that the class ran to more like 8:15 than 8, so I'm apologizing in advance to anybody who has to get off immediately, promptly on the hour, and I will try and get into the space as much as I can, but I know myself, and I know there's a lot of wisdom in the room, and realistically, we might be running until 8:15. A little word about the way that we work in a group like this. First, it needs to be confidential. What we discuss can be shared in group, but not outside of group without permission. And that is the way that we enable ourselves to talk about things that matter rather than feeling confined to small talk. What is shared in group doesn't leave group. I do ask that you try to be as present as fully as possible, at least in the breakout rooms. That means, I know that there are some times where you really do have to sit behind your name or your picture and you would rather not be on camera. That's fine in the big room, but let me put it this way. I strongly invite you to be present to each other in the breakout rooms with your faces. I ask, and I know that you all know this, that you speak your truth in ways that respect others' truth. We're learning as a community, across the community, to lift up and hold our differences and our different understandings. I know that this group is going to do that. And one way of getting there is to respond with a question rather than a statement. So, for example, being able to say, I hear you, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Can you share more what you mean when you use the term or you use the word? And that way we're adding to the wisdom and not subtracting from it. And lastly, I love this formulation. It's from a teacher called Parker Palmer, who some of you may know of. No fixing, no saving, no advising, no correcting. There is no surer way of shutting down somebody's quest for wisdom than saying, oh, well, what you should do is this, because my Aunt Rose did it and it really worked for her. Yeah, that is a shutdown. I know you won't do that. I'm just reminding us that we're not here to fix or save or advise or correct. We're here to share, which is a very different thing. Do I have our agreement? Just give me a thumbs up in your window that those are our touchstones. Lovely, thank you. Andrea, I see a hand up. Yes. You'll need to unmute.
Sorry, no, it was.
Oh, that's a thumbs up. Got it.
Supposed to be a thumbs up.
Okay.
Sorry.
I understand. And thank you. I'm just very impressed that you do it by icon and not with your physical thumb. That's great. Are we in agreement, ladies and gentlemen? It looks as though we are. So good. So that's our contract with each other. And we can move to dedicating our learning and blessing our learning. Now, I'm a big believer in this. The underlying idea is that when people share wisdom together, when they share Torah together, the Torah doesn't just stay in the room. Unlike the confidentiality, the good energy that the Torah creates kind of goes out to work in the world. So there is goodness in our learning. And if you wish, we can dedicate our goodness. So I'm just going to go silent for a moment and ask you, you can dedicate for a sad reason, for a happy reason. It can be a collective towards a group of people. It can be towards a single person. You can name them or not name them, just as you wish. But let's gather together the people for whom we are dedicating our learning tonight, and then together we'll say the blessing. Susan, yes?
For those recovering from the attacks in Boulder, whether physically or mentally or both, and for those affected by our current regime, shall we call it?
Let's call it a regime. Thank you. And please people keep an eye on the chat. Yes, thank you. To Cherie Moore, to Raisel's grandchildren, to Brian Wilson, to the undocumented of the US. And if you have another dedication that your fingers haven't quite caught up with, please go ahead and keep them coming. I'm going to move us to the blessing, so please just read along with me. In your spaces, Baruch Ata Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. And may our learning be sweet tonight and bring us new insights and some additional sweetness to the world. Okay, that's all the introduction out of the way. Let me catch up the folks who were not with us last time and just give a quick summary of what we did. You can access the recording last time and do the exercise. And honestly, the sessions don't build on each other, absolutely. So you might want to do that. And this is a nice exercise to do. So what we did was we considered a lot of the time when people are thinking about what makes me happy, it bumps into the idea of having a bucket list. A bucket list being, what am I going to do that's going to make me happy? Or what are my ambitions before I kick the bucket? What do I want to get done before I die? And we used the idea of the bucket list as a convenient way to take a snapshot of where our happiness meters are at the moment. We looked at 4 domains for potential happiness. One is money, one is power, meaning being in charge of people, one is pleasure, meaning pleasure, and one is admiration, having other people admire us. By the end of my life, do I want to win the Nobel Prize, which I will not do before the end of my life, but that kind of thing, worldly recognition. And then we came to realize that a lot of what we wrote on that list, some of it stands a chance of truly making us happy, although we might not see quite how just yet, but some of it really doesn't, because it's based on false equations. So what we then did was to go through the bucket list again and strip out the stuff that wasn't going to work and take a look at what was left on the list as a kind of starting point for these are the things that stand a chance of getting me to happiness. Okay, and in the next 2 sessions of the course, we're going to zone in and we're going to give names to those, okay? That is an Arthur Brooks exercise. It's called the reverse bucket list. He does it on his birthday every year, but we discussed that it might be rather a good one to do on before Yom Kippur. That as we are reassessing the year that has just gone, let's maybe reassess whether what I think makes me happy actually makes me happy or doesn't. What can I let go of this Yom Kippur? And truth be told, you might well hear something about that from me on the Bimmer by way of a kavanah this Yom Kippur, seeing as our minds are there. I want to remind us this again from last time before we go to this time. These are the 4 false equations of happiness. Okay, Proposition 1 is that if I get what I want, I'm going to be satisfied. We know that this is not true. We know that one pair of shoes is never enough. The only thing that happens when you have the pair of shoes that you really want is that you need another pair of shoes almost immediately. But that itself is also a false equation, because continually getting what I want also, curiously, does not satisfy. The teachers in this field call it being on the hedonic treadmill. Yeah, the pleasure treadmill. We're just sort of pushing the button, and there's less of a return every time. The third thing, the third equation that we think equals happiness but actually does not make us happy, is the idea that we measure our success by continually having, I would add, or being more than others. Yeah, I have a PhD, and therefore I am more successful than somebody with a master's degree. We know that doesn't work, and yet we're drawn to thinking about our happiness in those categories. And the converse is also true, false equation number 4. If I have a master's and somebody else has a PhD, that means I'm a failure, at least compared to the person who has the PhD. And these 4 equations, you only have to look at the advertisements in a movie theater. You only have to drive down any street in Los Angeles that has got billboards on it, and you will see these false equations constantly being reinforced. We're being bombarded by them. But we know deep down, even if we haven't thought about them before this evening, we know deep down that they are not a lasting route to happiness. Getting there has to be by way of something else. Okay? So let me just check. I'm going to stop the share for a moment for the benefit of our eyes. And I'm going to just check the chat. And the recording for the last session will be on the IKAR YouTube. I'm making a note to check with comms, but they normally upload it the day after it's recorded. So you go to YouTube, you go to the IKAR channel, and it should be there. So I will be checking. And Sarah, how lovely, you have twins in your life. Happy birthday to your twins. Okay. Are we ready to add to our knowledge with this evening's subject? Okay. I say that because I did promise you at the end of last time that we would go straight to, these are the 4 false equations, and we would start digging into the 4 things that stand a chance of making us happy. But there's a very important step that we need to take in between, and tonight's session is going to be devoted to that. Our teacher, Ecclesiastes, calls it a search for wisdom. My thoughts also turned to appraising wisdom and madness and folly. I found that wisdom is superior to folly, as light is superior to darkness. It's the kind of thing that if you found it on a mug in the checkout line at Marshall's, you'd walk right past it. Yeah, but notice what he is saying here. This is a stepping away. When we search for wisdom, when we want to try and give ourselves insight, the first step has to be to stop. It has to be to interrupt the patterns that we have been running on and to dedicate ourselves, just like we dedicated our learning tonight, to dedicate ourselves to exploring the possibility that things might be different from what we thought they were. I know that's an obvious thing to say, but it doesn't always translate into an obvious thing to do. Consider how reactive we are. Think of your last knee-jerk reaction to whatever it was that you had a knee-jerk reaction to. We didn't give ourselves the grace to pause, to step back, to ascertain, and to say, I need to think about that a bit. And the same is true for happiness. Rather than swallowing, you must have the latest this, you must have the latest that, you must have a bucket list, you must have. The way that we think about happiness is in itself important. And if we shift the way that we think about happiness, it allows for the possibility of greater expansiveness and greater wisdom. Are you with me so far? Yeah. Of course, in Jewish terms, what we're doing is we're talking about change and teshuvah live like this close to each other. But this is a different exercise from repenting. This is a conscious choice. It often happens when we're a little bit older. It's a conscious choice to say, okay, whatever I'm doing here is not serving me. I'm going to stop and see if I can discover something that will serve me better. And why is this important? You're not going to do a course with me without getting some Shakespeare in there somewhere. There is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. The way we think about happiness matters. Just the fact of standing back and saying to ourselves, you know what? I'm not sure that this is working. You know what? I've got the house and the garden and the car and the mortgage and the family and the PhD and but yeah. In that moment where we stop to think, the possibility of wisdom opens up. And it turns out that we can indeed manage our thinking. I know that we have one person on this call who happens to be a bit of an expert in this field. I'm not going to give away unless they feel like declaring themselves. But there are multiple fields these days that are devoted to managing our thinking, to reframing, to repositioning, to learning thinking skills that will lead to greater well-being. In other words, we have agency here. Life is not something that just drops out of the sky and happens to us. Now, we can't avoid negative feelings. I would go further, actually, and say we can't avoid negative events, really, because stuff is going to happen. But we can process them differently. We can understand them. We can learn from them, and we have agency. The space between here and here belongs to us. You might even say that one of the gifts of the Garden of Eden was that we got given control over this space, provided that we remember that and we remember how to use it. With me so far? Let me pause for thoughts, observations, questions, anything bubbling up that needs addressing. Remember that the chat line is always open. Okay, are we intrigued? I hope we are. I hope we're intrigued. Okay, then let's move forward. I'm going to give us a word for this. It is not, there are multiple words for this, managing our thinking. And there are quite a few practices for doing it as well. This is only one. But this is pure Arthur Brooks. Having had a bit of pure Ecclesiastes and a bit of pure Shakespeare, we've now got a bit of pure Brooks. And his terminology for this is metacognition. And meta means above or beyond, and cognition means thinking. Metacognition is that we can change the world, we can change our impression. He puts it, when you can't change the world, change how you experience it instead. And how do we do that? I think there's a step missing in there. Forgive me, Arthur Brooks. We have to change the way we're thinking about it. We have to be more expansive. I'm seeing stuff in the chat. Hold on a moment. Oh, it's Sarah, thank you for being so frank and so honest. Everybody's thinking is unmanageable. I promise it's not just you. There's a wonderful teacher, the rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto, who, as you can imagine, had a lot to think about. The rabbi of the Warsaw Ghetto, who was a meditator, wrote once that if anybody ever stopped for 2 seconds and actually looked at what was going on inside their head, they would immediately sign themselves up to an asylum. They would realize that, in fact, they are absolutely crazy. Remember, the world came from chaos. Yeah, so chaos is part of our natural state, I think. You've segued me very nicely to my next slide. Here is a picture. Okay. I have to say that as somebody who trained in the arts and not the sciences, I have really enjoyed this bit. And I also have to say that because I'm somebody who trained in the arts and not in the sciences, scientists on the call, please forgive me if this is primitive. Okay? But here is the basic idea. The basic idea is that our brain has departments. So the primary department, you'll hear it called the reptilian brain or the lizard brain sometimes. The primary department down here at our brainstem governs instincts and survival. Yeah, this is the part of the brain that will move us around out of the cold if we're cold. This is the part of the brain that will react to our environment at the most basic level. Yeah, this is the survival brain. This is the one that is going to instruct our body to do what it needs to do to keep alive, to eat when it's hungry, to puke when it's had something to eat that isn't right for it, and so on and so on and so on. So think of that as sort of level 1. Level 2 is the emotional or feeling brain. It's called the limbic brain. And I want us to notice that it is not the same as the rational brain. Okay? The rational or thinking brain is a separate department. When we are dealing with our feelings, we are always initially reacting from the limbic brain. I feel joy, I feel disgust, I feel rage, I feel sadness, I feel, anybody who has seen Inside Out by Disney, which is a very good version of this, actually, will understand. But the basic emotions, the basic human emotions, 2 positive, 4 negative, yay, human beings, they all live here. And often when we are engaged with a passionate feeling, that's why we get driven and steered by our emotions, because the feeling brain is taking control. This is important when it comes to happiness, because of course some feelings might be positive. Yeah. So it's unprocessed in a way. But metacognition and our power to regulate our feelings is, as you can see, the biggest part of the brain. It's the part up here under the skull, and it's also right here where we put the tefillin. Yeah. This is human brain. This is brain that can exist in two realities, that says, I may be feeling X, but I can make choices about how I react to it. Okay? And that's metacognition. I can't change the thing. I actually can't change the internal wiring of my brain. If I'm angry, I'm angry. And my brain is doing all of those things that the brain does to the body when it's angry. I can feel I can feel the blood pulsing in my wrists. My teeth are clenched, and all that is happening. But I can bring my frontal cortex, my neocortex, in, so that I can decide how I am going to react to those feelings. Okay. And in that gap comes the possibility of making ourselves happier. Yeah, that's another important distinction, by the way. It's not like happiness is something that is sitting on the shelf in a store and you just have to find the key to the store in order to be able to go and get the happiness. Happiness is a process. It's a practice. It benefits from repetition. It benefits from learning. Our journey to happiness is dynamic. Just like Kohelet said, I set myself the task to explore wisdom and madness and folly. It's not like I immediately came up with the answers. And in that process, we can change the way that we're wired, and we can begin to pick our reactions. It is one of the great gifts of being a human being. Now we have to practice it because, again, look at the limbic brain and look at the way that contemporary advertising culture is playing to our limbic brain. Yeah, we have to train it. Happiness or tending to our happiness is a skill that can be learned and practiced. We're not just stuck with feeling all of the feelings all of the time. So Mara, hold the question. It's a good question. Hold the question, we're getting there. I think that the next couple of slides are going to explain it. Because I can talk about the theory all I want, but because this is a practice, it's about doing. 4 steps. Okay. And I'm gonna pause at the end of the first step so that we can do a little bit of scribbling down. Step number 1 is when we're having a feeling, observe it. In Buddhism, I mean, this is a wisdom that exists across all spiritual practices. You find it in yoga, you find it in Buddhism, you find it in Islam. It's there everywhere. It's part of the stopping that says, okay, hang on a minute, let me check in with myself. What am I feeling? Buddhists even suggest that you do it in the 3rd person. What is Deborah? You should know that my name for myself is Deborah, Rabbi Silver notwithstanding. What is Deborah feeling right now? What am I feeling right now? And then, and this is an important step, journal it. By journaling, we bring the feeling out of the limbic brain and we process it with the neocortex. So it's important. It's the difference between having the feeling going round and round in our head and actually writing it down or capturing it in some way. It does, I'm gripping a pencil like my life depends on it. It doesn't have to be a pen or a pencil. It can be a lipstick and a mirror. It can be a Post-it. It can be a note on your phone or your computer. It doesn't matter. What matters is that by capturing it, it creates a distance from the feeling. All right. So that is the first step. We distance ourselves from the feeling. It's also possible to swap feelings out with other feelings. More about that in a minute. We then place ourselves in a field of positive memories. Remember when we're having a negative feeling, how everything in our lives up until that date becomes awful and hopeless and dreadful and terrible, catastrophizing, they call it, that can be offset. So the negative thought, you can interrupt the flow of the negative thought, and then ultimately, from a place of greater contemplation, we can say to ourselves, well, what does this experience mean? How am I going to integrate this experience? And these 4 ways of dealing with feeling create the distance in which we can become happier. Okay, I promise it works. I know that I'm dumping a lot of habit-changing information on you. I know that in order to become happier, we do need to change some of our habits, but we're doing it together, and there will be much repetition of these concepts. So let me offer us the opportunity to do a little bit of practicing, okay? Let me share at the beginning that the journaling work that you're doing is not going to be for the sharing part of the session. Okay, so you can let the journaling work be personal. I'm just asking us to pick a situation where we're struggling with some negative feelings at the moment. Pick just one, please. Just one. Yeah. And what I will invite us to do once we've got that just one is, first of all, notice and name the feeling to yourself. You don't even have to write it down at this point, but with as much precision as you can. Notice and name the feeling. When I think of that situation, I feel. Okay. And then I'm going to invite you to write the feeling down. You don't really need to write down the situation for this to work. It's just about writing down the feeling. If you end up journaling the situation, if it's a situation that made you mad, it will just keep you mad. Yeah. What we're doing is focusing in on the feeling. So you're writing down the negative feeling, and I'm inviting you to use full sentences. This is another really important technique. And the reason for that is that the feeling brain expresses itself in spurts, but the frontal brain expresses itself in sentences. So just the act of writing a feeling down in a full sentence is going to give you some distance from it. So let me go quiet and give you a couple of minutes to do that. Just a minute more to finish the sentence you're on, because this is just an example exercise. Just want to check that everybody has got a sentence or a little bit more than a sentence on their page. Again, it's not for sharing. I recognize that these feelings are personal, right? But that's the first step. You've just practiced the first step. You observe the feeling, you name it, and you write it down in a full sentence. Yeah. Second step. I love this. The quotation, by the way, is from Kohelet, from Ecclesiastes. Okay, remember that we said that one of the gifts of the Garden of Eden was choosing. We can choose a better emotion. And again, this is pure Brooks. Yeah. There are receptors in our brain for negative feelings. He uses the analogy of the receptors in our brain for caffeine. Yeah, caffeine doesn't work the way we think it does. It's not that we drink caffeine and the effect of caffeine is to wake us up. It's that caffeine blocks the receptors for the molecules that make us tired. In other words, follow the analogy, if we can flood the terrain with a different feeling, then it's going to change the way that we're holding the negativity. You with me? This is why in Morning Minion, we always begin by putting gratitude in the chat. At the beginning, every Morning Minion that you come to at IKAR, and over the 4 years that Morning Minion has been going, it's become a practice. We put gratitude in the chat. Why? Because gratitude floods the negative receptors. And it adjusts our position and it gives us distance from the negative feelings. And with distance comes choice. Okay. Laughter works the same way. And so does hope. So gratitude, laughter, or hope. Okay. So I would ask you not to take step 2 just yet, because I'm going to ask you to swap wisdom about step 2. with each other. Okay, what are my gratitude practices? What are my laughter practices? What are my hope practices? Okay. The third step in mastering our feelings is to call up positive memories. And that is a perspective that we may well already have the muscles for. Yeah, that even though today is a crappy day, not every day of my life has been crappy all the time. Yeah, so it interrupts the doom loop. It's a thinking habit that can interrupt the doom loop. And it can be hard to summon up a positive memory when we are feeling negative, correct? Therefore, we need a collection of them. Okay, allow me to introduce you to the concept of what my dear roommate Jo, many of you know Jo, she calls it the ego boo file. Yeah. Whenever somebody has done something particularly lovely or said something particularly lovely, or you have a photograph of a moment that was particularly lovely, you stick it in the ego boo file. And then when you get the letter from the aggrieved member of your community, I am not talking about IKAR here, but when you get the letter that absolutely slices your legs out from underneath you and makes you doubt everything that you ever thought yourself capable of, you go to the ego boo file and you open it up. In other words, I'm being very specific here. I'm not saying sit and meditate upon a positive memory. I'm saying pull out the photograph and really sit with it and interrupt the doom loop. Yeah, because we can. We have that power, we have that agency. We can change our reality by thinking about it differently. It is a way to greater happiness. And the last step, this is another Brooke exercise that I love. Things change over time. And what he suggests, and we can't do it tonight because it requires time, but he suggests that when you have a negative experience, devote a line or two to it in the journal, and then turn over the page. Come back in a month and see how your experience of it has changed. It will have changed. It doesn't mean that, you know, we've moved past it and now it's all rainbows and unicorns. It means that your experience of it will have changed. And then when you come back again in 6 months' time, it will have changed again. And this becomes a record of our own resilience. I promise it works. I promise it works. We set ourselves to learn wisdom. We use these techniques of metacognition to create distance between us and our immediate felt experience. And we allow the analytical part of our brains, the bit that does the thinking, to process them rather than getting dragged along by our feelings. And gradually and slowly, but just like with any other skill, we get better at it. It really works. It really does. So I do want to make sure that we get a little bit of breakout room time tonight. And I just dumped a huge amount of information on you. Robin, we will miss you. Thank you for letting us know, and we'll see you next time, I hope. Yeah. Irene,
Sorry.
please don't worry. Please don't worry. We'll see you next time, I hope.
Yes.
So I would, Irene, to your point, I would say it depends on the positive memory. Yeah. Because the positive memory of you by the ocean might not have morphed. So I think it matters which positive memory you pick. Yeah.
Yeah, I try to remember all the happy stuff, you know, when I was a teenager. I mean, first love. I mean, who can forget first love? But it didn't turn out.
Reem,
yeah,
no.
you're right. You're right.
First love is dreadful.
Oh, it starts out great, but then the rest.
I know. So, but this is important. We get to pick what nourishes us. Yeah. So the photograph by the ocean, the bee in the flower, we don't, it doesn't have to be a story. It's a memory. Thank you for raising it. That's really important. Okay, and you're segueing us nicely into breakout rooms. Are people up for 10 minutes of breakout room time? Sorry, Surah. We will see you soon. Thank you for being here. Are people up for 10 minutes of breakout time? If there are many of you that have to go, I can oh, Susan, oh dear. Okay, I really should have scheduled this as a class for an hour and a half, and that is my fault. And I am sorry. I am sorry. But hopefully, Susan, even though you've got to go, you've got the basic strategy and the recording will be there.
Yes, thank you. I just thought it was an hour. I didn't realize it was an hour and a half. So
I am so sorry.
okay.
I am so sorry.
But no problem.
It'll be, I figure it'll be about an hour and a quarter. But I need to get busy with the breakout rooms. And Jane, you are absolutely right. I have not given you the prompt yet. So let me just create a set of breakout rooms. There should be 2 to 3 of you to a room.
Is the bane of the e-Gabai's existence breaking?
I know,
But go for it.
but we can manage this. We can manage this. We can manage our feelings. The prompt for the room, Jane, and thank you for lifting it up, is to talk about the positive emotions that you can use to flood the receptors. Remember, gratitude, laughter, hope were 3 suggestions, that we broaden our perspective by remembering something we're grateful for. We broaden our, or we jolly ourselves out of the negative feeling. It does work. Or we remind ourselves that there is such a thing as hope, and that once upon a time we felt it and we are capable of feeling it again. We've got the wiring. I'm interested for people to share other, either stories about those or positive emotions that work for you to plug into those receptors. Are people clear on the prompt? Yes? All right. I'm sending the class into breakout, and I will see you in 10 minutes. It's not very long, so please share the time.
Sarah, you clicked out too fast, but that's okay. We're on.
Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about that.
Okay,
Anyway,
we're here.
well, more to
More
come.
to come.
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. I'm sorry it was so short.
That's okay. We just got started, got
I
started.
know. I know.
Are we waiting for more people to come back?
We have one more room coming back
Uh-huh.
in 15 seconds, 14 now. No, 2 more rooms,
So this makes me laugh.
3 more rooms.
This makes me laugh. Someone gave me this journal, and I think it's really ugly. But but it was right here. So I just like, okay, I'll use this journal then.
Well, the content might defy the cover. Welcome back, everybody. I want to say that I'm sorry if that felt a little short. I am going to ask for the class to be listed running to 8:30 for the final 2 sessions, so we don't feel quite so squished, and I hope that's okay. And I'll just invite you to drop if there is wisdom that came up. Please just, lovely. Lovely, Leah. Thank you. Thank you. Please just drop your wisdom into the chat. If you wish. And if you do not wish, you do not have to, because we are all grown-ups here. And we don't have to participate just because the group leader says we must. We have choices. Here we go. Lydia, oy vey. That should not have happened. I'm so sorry. My machinery told me that you were in a room with 2 other people. Eve, I'm so sorry. Thank you for sticking with us. Yeah, different things at different times.
Yeah, Irene, I've done that. I've done that. It was the only way for me not to completely hate my neighbor was to like make up an entirely different story about like she doesn't really know this is going on. Oh, she does. Anyway, I just had to like make up a whole story.
But we say that. I want to sit with that a minute because I think that the story we tell ourselves is important.
Mm-hmm.
That's the piece that we have control over. And again, I'm thinking of Brooks. He can't say, you can't be swapping out, I'm ecstatically happy when you're at a funeral for somebody you love. That's not what the feeling swap is about, but you can choose a better emotion. And I wonder if there is, I wonder if there actually is a way of choosing a better story. A story that is actuated maybe by compassion. I don't know. I don't know. I think there's wisdom there. I think there's wisdom there.
Complicated than the way I put it, so I made it
Yeah.
a little more detailed, but it's even still, it's hard to
Yeah.
explain in a chat, but there has been
Yeah.
research that you can just create another path. If you're stuck running over all the bad stuff over and over and over, you just make a different story and it makes a different path.
Yeah. Yeah. But it takes time, right? You
A
can't
lot of
just
time, a
say-
lot of repetition.
Exactly. Yeah. And the older we get, the longer it takes to create new neurological pathways, but we can.
Yep.
And that is part of the happiness gap, if you want. That's the synapse that we get to jump over. Thank you. And thank you for sharing. Oh, Rachel. Thank you for sharing so frankly. So to conclude, a quick reminder of those 4 steps. It's fine to hold up your phone to the screen and take a picture. Of course, the slides will be on the recording as well. but just consolidating and remembering that we, when the negativity surrounds, as Matisyahu would have it, we observe the emotion, we journal, we write it down in a sentence. Yeah, we opt to choose a better emotion to bring in, to flood those receptors. We set what we're going through against a background of memories that, I mean, I'm English, you know, this whole positive memory language is a leap for me. I think the way that I would probably express it is a rather grudging Monty Python, like, well, I suppose it wasn't always so terrible. Yeah, you know, very Eeyore, but it achieves the same thing. It achieves that switch. And then this exercise, I have yet to get to 6 months with this exercise, but you journal the negative experience. Then in a month, you come back and journal again on that experience. And then in 6 months, you come back with the specific, okay, did it teach me anything? That is it's almost a way of changing the past. Yeah, which makes things very interesting indeed. So this is the power of metacognition. And this is a really important practical step when we're learning about happiness. We can manage our emotions. We don't have to be at their mercy. And if we can do that, the additional benefit is that not only do we create the space for self-regulation, but we also create space and energy that we can invest in forces that have a greater chance of making us happier in the long term. And we will be looking, there are 4 of them, spoiler alert, so we'll look at 2 next time and 2 the time after. I see 2 raised hands. Let's do Susan and then Rachel.
Am I correct that there was a slide after this one with more details on the process or more details on the observe?
That one?
After the 4 steps, I thought you had shown us one.
Ah,
Oh.
just the power of metacognition.
Okay. All right.
That's the only one.
Okay.
That's the only one. And Rachel.
Yeah, this is not a simple question, so we can leave it to another time, but I can look back on certain traumatic experiences and on the one hand say it made me a much more sympathetic, sensitive, empathetic person because I know what I went through and I have a good sense of possibly what others are going through with the similar experience. But on the other hand, it can be a dual thing. And they can sit side by side, which is the person who did that, harmed a lot of people. And that still upsets me, in other words, I can really look at the positive, but at the same time, recognize that, and it still exists for other people. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I do. And it's an important point that you've raised. It's a process of, and let me try for a 10,000-foot response. And we'll
Okay.
see how I do.
I know it's a difficult thing. Yeah.
The process is one of reframing and not of compartmentalizing.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not of denial. You can't deny a negative experience. You can't say that never happened. And you can't say, that the person or the set of circumstances still has the potential to cause harm. But it's more, I am putting down the burden of carrying it with me in that form because I can carry this better.
Sure. And I will say that I don't want to dominate, but I will say that I don't think of it often, but when I thought of it just like yesterday and that other memory of the negative side came in, but I walk away being satisfied that I've grown you know, and I'm
Mm,
not carrying it around all the time.
mm.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. There are two more hands up, and then I think we'll close. But let's do. I think Mara, I think your hand went up a scotch before Anne's, so let's hear from you first.
Oh, I thought Anne was first, but
You did?
think
Okay,
Anne-
let's hear from Anne.
no. Oh, Anne is saying no. Okay. So I just wanted to clarify whether this is a feeling, a general feeling, or connected to a specific situation. I had actually put it down as a feeling with a habit, so I'm not clear.
Yeah, I think the exercise works better if it's situational.
Okay, so a feeling with a specific situation
Attached.
that has
And I'm
occurred.
sorry, yeah.
That has occurred in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, but you know, that thing of something that you're still grappling with, that occurred in the past, but you're still grappling with it. And I would also say it's probably worth, unless you're experienced in this work, it's probably worth starting small. You know, I am irritated with my sister for taking the last banana is just an easier emotional territory to navigate than, you know, I hate my abusive ex-boyfriend. Yeah, I think as ever, when you're learning a skill, it pays, I think, to start small. I was being a little bit facetious, but not.
Yeah, yeah, thanks. Okay.
But specific.
Mm.
And remember, specificity is part of the technique as well. It's not just, I'm mad as hell and I can't take anymore. You know, it's, I am mad because, yeah, I am mad. I am angry and irritated and disappointed and because,
Thank you.
yeah. And Anne, we're going to give you the last word.
I had an interesting epiphany through this exercise. I realized that I've been groomed. You know, it's like that old phrase, why are you smiling like an idiot? Like you should never smile. You should always be nervous. It shows weakness. I think I've been groomed to think of everything bad. And what was interesting throughout your discussion was that if I have a good experience, it doesn't take long for me to immediately reach for a negative to cover it, which is literally the reverse of everything we've just discussed.
Right.
And I found it really hard to come up with doing the opposite. And so now my homework assignment for the next class is to nail down something, because for me, it almost feels guilty. Like you're happy, you shouldn't be happy. You know, if I can't reach for an immediate reason not to be happy, then of course you think of the people who are being locked up, or people in Gaza or whatever. I mean, you must not ever allow yourself to be happy. And I do think that there's a certain guilt. There's a weird, I think we've been programmed. I think it's cultural. I do think it's Jewish. This sort of
But
fear.
it's also a chemical thing. He talks about it elsewhere in the book, Brooks. It's something called negativity bias.
Right.
And that has a really important biological reason. Yeah, that if there's a room full of smiling people, but one of them is scowling at you with a manic light in their eyes, you want to be focusing on the one scowling at you with the manic light in their eyes, because they're the dangerous one.
But isn't a lot of this just self-preservation? Isn't that where we're supposed to be vigilant and nervous?
Yes.
Worried, and
yes.
if we're not worried, then we're weak and predators could come.
Exactly. And all of that underpins negativity bias. Yeah. The problem is that living permanently in that state gets in the way of our being happy.
And I think possibly contributes to illness.
Oh, I'm
and
sure.
malaise and et cetera, et cetera.
Certain. I'm certain. Yeah, but the negativity bias is there. It's real. It's not even, or it's not only down to being Jewish and trailing with the centuries and centuries of guilt. It's in our wiring. Yeah, to be on guard. It's in our wiring to be distrustful when things are quiet. Yeah, but if we're going to reach for happiness, then we need to practice the skill that we're weaker at. I think that's probably what he would say. But it's real. It's absolutely real.
Well, I'm going to take this very seriously, and I really want to change those groups because they don't serve us well. Well, I should say they don't serve me well.
Right. Right. And we have choices about that. We have agency, we have dignity, we can do it. But we have to learn it, and we have to be nice to ourselves while we're learning it, by the way. The way that we speak to ourselves is important. Folks, we really are so very over time. Sarah, is it a quick observation? Is it okay?
I was just curious. We can put this on the, put this in the fridge and open it up next week. But no, it was just that wondering when the various parts of the brain developed evolutionarily. Because I had a fight once with my siblings who thought I was too emotional, and you can't make decisions if you're so emotional. And it's like, yes, you can. You know that emotions and feelings are the first ways we did make decisions. Then we also, just so therefore I can have all these feelings and then be rational too, right?
You need somebody who's more scientifically savvy than me to answer that question. But I will ask. I have a convenient scientifically trained chavruta, so I will ask her because she will know the answer. And I'll try and bring it back next week. So remind me. We began with a blessing. I want to close out with a blessing. I'm gonna just ground your feet and take a breath and maybe another breath. We worked really hard tonight. Yeah, I was demanding of you. Pat your back. You deserve pats on the back. And I'm going to share my favorite version of the priestly blessing by Rabbi Jordan Bernat Appel. Rabbi Jensen finished her sermon with it last week as well. We like it round here. May we be blessed and safe. May we be luminous and loved. May we be joyous and whole. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, there's been an explosion in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you post those? Can you post his interpretation? Do you have it to post? Or next week, next time?
Which interpretation?
Oh, I mean of his meta blessings. That you
the
just sent.
blessing? Drop me an email and I'll send
I will. Thank you.
All right. Everybody, take care. God bless. Thank you so much for coming and studying with me. Early Shabbat wishes. See you soon.